Have you ever wondered whether zoos are ethical or not? This is a question that has sparked countless debates around the world. It's a question that doesn't have a clear-cut answer, and for good reason. Zoos sit at the intersection of education, conservation, and entertainment, each with their own set of ethical implications. On one hand, zoos aim to educate the public about the wonders of the animal kingdom, inspire a love for wildlife, and champion the cause of conservation. They are also seen as sanctuaries for endangered species, providing a safe haven and even a chance at survival through captive breeding programs. On the other hand, there are those who argue that zoos rob animals of their freedom, confining them to artificial environments that can never truly replicate their natural habitats. They point to the potential for physical and psychological distress among captive animals as evidence of inherent cruelty. Stay tuned as we delve into the pros and cons of zoos. Zoos are not all black and white, they indeed have their positive aspects. Let's shift our perspective a bit and delve into the brighter side of zoos, the aspects that have given them endurance in our societies. For starters, zoos serve as an incredible educational tool. They offer visitors, especially younger generations, the opportunity to see, hear, and learn about animals from across the globe. This first-hand experience creates a deeper understanding and appreciation for the vast diversity of life on Earth. It's one thing to read about a Bengal tiger in a book, but it's a completely different experience to see one in real life, to witness its majesty and power. Zoos provide a tangible connection to the natural world that textbooks and documentaries simply cannot replicate. Secondly, zoos play a critical role in conservation. They house and breed species that are endangered or on the brink of extinction in the wild. Through carefully managed breeding programs, zoos have been able to increase the population of these endangered species and, in some instances, reintroduce them back into their natural habitats. Think about the California condor, the black-footed ferret, or the Arabian oryx. These are all species that owe their continued existence, at least in part, to the efforts of zoos. Lastly, zoos provide invaluable opportunities for scientific research. Researchers can study animal behavior, genetics, and diseases in a controlled environment, gaining insights that may not be possible in the wild. This research can help improve conservation strategies, animal welfare, and our overall understanding of these magnificent creatures. So, from an educational standpoint, zoos offer a unique, hands-on learning experience. From a conservation perspective, they serve as a lifeline for endangered species. And from a scientific viewpoint, they provide a platform for important research. While these benefits seem significant, they don't come without a downside. But that, dear listeners, is a tale for another scene. However, zoos, despite their positive aspects, do have their share of criticisms. Let's delve into some of these concerns. One of the primary criticisms of zoos is the potential harm to animal welfare. Many argue that zoos cannot provide the same quality of life for animals as they would experience in their natural habitats. Animals in zoos often display behaviors indicative of stress or boredom, such as pacing or overgrooming. Some species, particularly large mammals and birds, may not have adequate space to roam, fly, or engage in natural behaviors. Beyond the physical constraints, zoos can also have a negative impact on an animal's psychological well-being. Imagine being taken away from your familiar surroundings, placed in an environment that's far from your natural habitat and being watched by hundreds of people every day. This could potentially lead to a condition known as zoochosis, a term used to describe the obsessive, repetitive behaviors exhibited by animals in captivity. Next, we come to the lack of natural habitats. Zoos try to mimic the animals' natural habitats as closely as possible, but they can never truly replicate the vastness and complexity of the wild. There's a stark difference between living in a forest that stretches for miles and being confined to an enclosure, no matter how well designed it may be. Lastly, let's touch on the ethical implications of keeping animals in captivity. While zoos play a crucial role in conservation, education, and research, the question remains, is it right to keep animals in captivity for our entertainment and learning? This is a question that doesn't have a clear-cut answer and is a topic of ongoing debate among animal rights activists, researchers, and the general public. So while zoos do have their benefits, it's important to consider the significant drawbacks. The welfare and rights of animals cannot be sidelined in the pursuit of conservation and education. As we can see, zoos are a complex issue with both advantages and disadvantages. One of the most contentious issues in the zoo debate is the subject of captive breeding programs. These are initiatives where endangered species are bred in captivity, with the aim of increasing their population numbers. First, let's consider the positives. Captive breeding programs can provide a lifeline for species on the brink of extinction. They allow us to increase population numbers in a controlled environment, safe from threats like predators, disease, and habitat loss. Some well-known success stories include the California condor and the black-footed ferret, both of which were at one point extinct in the wild but have been reintroduced thanks to captive breeding. However, like every coin has two sides, captive breeding programs are not without their pitfalls. One major concern is genetic inbreeding. When a population is small, which is often the case with endangered species, there's a higher risk of breeding between close relatives. This can lead to a lack of genetic diversity, making the population more susceptible to disease and less adaptable to changes in their environment. Another challenge is the reintroduction of these bred animals back into the wild. Animals born and raised in captivity may struggle to survive in their natural habitat. They may lack the necessary survival skills such as hunting or evading predators that would normally be learned from their parents in the wild. Additionally, some argue that the resources and effort put into captive breeding would be better spent on protecting and restoring natural habitats. After all, there's little point in breeding animals only to release them into an environment that's no longer suitable for them. In conclusion, while captive breeding programs have undoubtedly saved some species from extinction, they are not a one-size-fits-all solution. They should be seen as part of a broader conservation strategy, one that also includes habitat protection and restoration. Captive breeding programs, like zoos themselves, are a controversial topic, with valid points on both sides. It's clear that the issue of zoos is not a simple one. We've traversed the winding paths of ethics, seen the bright spots where zoos educate and conserve, but also wandered into the shadows where captivity may compromise animal welfare. We've delved into the thorny thicket of captive breeding programs, acknowledging their role in species preservation, yet recognizing the ethical dilemmas they pose. Zoos, like most human endeavors, are not black and white. They're a complex mosaic of grays, brimming with potential for both good and harm. It's up to us to keep asking hard questions, to keep seeking answers, to keep this conversation alive. Because at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about the myriad of magnificent creatures sharing this world with us, their lives intertwined with ours. As we continue to grapple with these ethical questions, remember that our ultimate goal should always be the welfare and conservation of these magnificent creatures.